Thanks for joining us at xm.com for the special report video. I'm Cristina Marujos, and joining me today is Cristina Parthenidu, investment analyst. We'll be taking a closer look to the British pound, whose recovery is not only affected by how the coronavirus pandemic unfolds, but also by the Brexit saga, which has now taken center stage again with crucial deadlines approaching. Christina, Britain has only just opened its businesses a few days ago after weeks of being in lockdown, with many now speculating the currency will get a much-needed relief. How much can the pound gain, though, right now?
Hi, Christina. Well, definitely the reopening of the economy is good news for the pound and generally for any currency. The strong sell-off we saw in the markets in the first quarter was mainly a result of the lockdown and not totally an outcome of the virus itself. While we're not going to see a full reopening yet, and probably governments may be more cautious about relaxing more restrictions because of the resurgence in virus cases in other international hubs such as the US and Australia. Nevertheless, if we don't see a serious increase in UK infections and the government and the central bank continue to support the economy, this week the Chancellor announced a 30 billion plan to save jobs. So consumption is expected to increase in the UK after last week's reopening, and we may see more improvement in the data, and that could probably add some footing under the pound, unless, of course, Brexit trade talks that started last week have a serious negative turn before the transition period ends in December.
Now, speaking of Brexit, even though the negotiations have resumed, they haven't really gotten over important issues that keep them oceans apart, especially regarding a trade agreement between the UK and the EU. Is a trade deal possible this year?
Indeed, Brexit talks had a bad start last week, although there were some virtual meetings during the lockdown period. The first face-to-face meeting last week was not successful. The EU and the UK just reminded markets that differences between them remain large, and Boris Johnson further discouraged the markets, saying that he was ready to leave the bloc without a deal or a deal similar to the one Australia has with the bloc. While this is a story markets heard before, and some tensions between the sides are widely expected in the first few meetings, probably some fight back could be part of Johnson's political strategy to pressure the EU and get his demands, since unlike Theresa May, he has a more supportive inner cycle, so there are not many Brexit conflicts at home. However, the battle with the EU is not expected to be easy, and 6 months may not be enough to have an ideal plan ready. There are some key sticking points that may need more time to be discussed. For example, the UK wants to create its own subsidy system and have access to the EU market without following EU regulations, but the EU says that this is unacceptable, and some environmental, employment and subsidy rules should be applied to protect the businesses' market shares in the bloc. Moreover, how goods will be moved between the economies and what kind of technology will be used are still unknown and create uncertainty about whether the UK will ever show compliance. Fisheries another problem, as the EU asks the UK to have a full access to the UK waters in exchange of British businesses keep selling fish in the EU markets. Perhaps national security and a less expensive access to other EU markets playing a more important role here, since fishing is accounting only a tiny portion of both economies. So overall, these troubles could prolong discussions, but I think since nothing is certain about how the virus will develop, and if we ever return to normal conditions, no side would like to deteriorate its economic situation through a no-deal Brexit. So in the end, an agreement could be possible, but it will be interesting to see if this would be an ideal one, and whether national parliaments in the European Union will have time to carefully vote on the plan before the transition period ends.
And now, Christina, taking everything into consideration, what is the medium-term outlook for the pound?
Well, unlike the euro, the pound has still some extra way to go to recover all its virus losses against the US dollar. If the country avoids a second wave of infections and moves forward with its reopening plans, probably we may see more gains in the market, and the pound may not appear very sensitive to the first round of Brexit talks, as long as there is nothing new in the talks. However, as we move closer to the end of the transition period, I expect the pound to face more volatility, so whether we're going to have a deal and an ideal one could play a key role if the pound will change direction to the downside or get more relief, running back above its 2019 highs.
Christina, thank you so much for joining me today and for your careful analysis of the British pound. And thank you for watching the special report here at xm.com.